Good evening, everybody. Good evening. How are you doing? For those who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Tracy Miller. Very proud and happy to be the superintendent here. I'm finishing my 5th year. I typically don't like to use microphones, but there's a hum here. And since we're recording this probably help the audio recording. So if you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll raise enough water or turn the speakers up. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Before we get too much more into it, I want to introduce some of the administrative team. Small district, so we have kind of a small crew. Mr. Garth Shankman, who's our Director of Communications. We have Mr. Joe Stewart, who's currently our high school principal. Mr. Kozlowski, who's currently the high school assistant principal. And then right to my left in the nice olive green shirt is Mr. Jason Lynch. He's our middle school assistant. Sitting next to him is Dr. Jill Hollingsworth. She is our Director of Curriculum and Technology. And I see Mr. Wooten, board member here. Thank you, Rob, for coming out tonight. We have Mr. John Fry, Director of Student Staff Services, and pretty much everything else. So did I miss anybody? Perfect. All right, so we want to put the information out ahead of time so you had a chance to read it. We brought hard copies, so you have it wouldn't do us any good for me to sit here and read the screen behind me. Most of you can't probably read the screen behind me. It's kind of far away. So at any rate, again, thank you for being here. It's important to come and get correct information. And so the first thing I want to say is I'm going to tell you the advice you've probably given to your kids at least 1,000 times. Don't believe what you read on the internet, right? All right. Meeting's over. Thank you. Have a good night. The old saying is so true. A lie can make its way around the globe before truth can take its first steps, right? So we're here today to give you correct information. So you can go back to the people who are lying on the internet and tell them that they're being not very truthful. So we have a very unique opportunity here, very unique, to do something powerful for our kids. And you'll hear me say it, and in a little bit you're going to hear Joe Stewart say it. We always want to take it back to the kids. What's best for kids? The only thing that's really going to change, the only thing that's going to, for our staff and for our students, is there's going to be a new principal next year. That's one big takeaway. That was going to happen anyway. Mr. Lilly's done great work over there. He's made a life and a professional choice to look at some other options. I respect that. I support Mr. Lilly. Whenever someone leaves our district, whether it be classified, certified, administrative, doesn't matter. I challenge our administrative team. Is there another way that we can do this? Can we be better? Can we be more efficient? Can we be more effective? Can we do what's best for kids? Is there another way to do it? And as the parents, our community, our taxpayers would expect and shouldn't get anything less than that. So that's why we have this unique opportunity right here, right now. So Mr. Lilly, again, he's resigned, so there's going to be a new principal. That's the change. We're so fortunate, and maybe the first time, this is my 38th year in education, I've had the opportunity to work with people with this kind of experience. Both Mr. Stewart and Mr. Kozlowski have many, many years of working in 612, 712 environments, situations. So they're very well versed on this, and it makes me feel even more comfortable about moving forward with this. So if you can just go to the second slide, please. I said we're a small organization. We have a very lean administrative team. Right now, we have 4 head count right now. We have a high school principal, a middle school principal, a high school assistant, and a middle school assistant. It's going to slightly change. The configuration is going to change. We'll have a 612 principal, and I'm very pleased that Mr. Stewart has agreed to take on this responsibility. He is a tremendous educational leader. Came to us a few years ago with just a wonderful background, has done a great job here at the high school, and he is going to be the 612 campus principal. We just finished interviews last Wednesday, for an associate principal. Now, the associate principal is a new position. The board has approved this job description. That's all it was a job description. So the associate principal will be the number 2 to Mr. Stewart. Wherever Mr. Stewart's in this building, the associate's going to be over there. Whenever Mr. Stewart's over in middle school, the associate's going to be here, so we have good coverage. And kind of like a quasi-principal in and of his own right. We're going to keep the 4 head count because we have a lot of kids here. We have a lot of staff. We need to make sure that we're doing a good job for our kids and our staff. We're going to keep our middle school assistant, and we're going to keep the high school assistant. So still 4 head count, just reconfigured differently. So as I said, we just finished interviews last week. We had a committee of 20 people, broke them up into 2 subgroups. We had teachers classified, a couple parents, a couple students, central office admin. It was a big group, board representation, very big group. It was, I think it was unanimous. They all picked Mr. Kozlowski, our current high school assistant, to serve in the role of the associate principal. We had one person internally apply, and or that we brought in for an interview. We brought in 3 external candidates, and all were very, very good candidates. We had 30-something people apply, got it down to the 4 we brought in. We ended up with 1. So at our next board meeting, I'm going to recommend that the board would hire Ms. Kozlowski as our associate principal, which fits in with the job description that was approved at the last board meeting. Pending approval, then that's going to leave a vacancy for a high school assistant. And then pending approval, then we'll post for a new high school assistant principal. And we'll see. I think it's going to be a very attractive job. We're going to get whoever it is, we're going to get a wonderful candidate, and we're going to hit the ground running. So that's a new organization structure for our secondary campus. Next slide. We're going to take it back to the students. The continuity of one vision, one focus, one mission, 6 through 12. Your kids are going to see amazing things happen and take place. I get it. I was a junior high principal. I was a high school principal. And when you're in that fishbowl, when you're the principal, you want to take care of your building. I get it 100%. And you want to make sure your buildings are staffed and you're scheduled and your students, and you really don't think too much about what's taking place over at the high school or as a high school principal down and what their needs are. And I get it. We want our staffs to work together. This is going to help facilitate that. There's great power when there's an English department meeting that now instead of 4 or 5 English teachers there, 4 or 5 English teachers here, we could have a full department meeting. What are the expectations for our kids? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because we don't want our freshman teachers saying, well, they didn't get the skills they needed at 8th grade, and then all the way down the line. Right? We're all working towards a common vision. And that's again, I'm not going to read it to you. I think that last bullet point, they're just really not going to see a difference. The difference is what's happening behind the scenes with education, our curriculum, our instruction, and our assessment. Go ahead. It's awesome. A lot of our kids take part in athletics. Fantastic. Mr. Foote does a great job here. He's well regarded in Southwest Ohio. He is well regarded in the state of Ohio. Does a great job. At the middle school, it's my 5th year. I think we've had 4 middle school ADs in 5 years. They work their rear ends off. They work as hard as they can, and it's a stipend, so it's not like it's a lot of money. It's very little money actually per hour. But we don't have the consistency of having the same person riding hurdle in middle school athletics every year. There should be a plan in place that we're going to buy uniforms for this team, boys, girls, at this, every so many years. It can't be just happenstance. Well, I think we need uniforms. Well, I think we need uniforms. Where if one person has oversight of that, it makes so much more sense. And you're scheduling. We have great facilities here. Gyms, tracks, outdoors, indoors. If one person was scheduling that, it would make so much more sense to be much more efficient. So the plan is to have a 7-12 athletic director as well. So we want the magic to happen for your kids in the classroom and also when they're taking part out in athletics. I'm a big believer in, I didn't create this, I'm not that smart, in professional learning communities for schools, for PLCs. For PLCs to work in schools, you've got to have time and you've got to have teachers working together. They have to. When I taught world history, I thought it was pretty decent. But you know what? I love to teach. I couldn't wait until we got to World War II because I was going to crush it. And they loved it. Kids loved World War II. But I think if it was so good, wouldn't it have been better if the other world history teacher could have used some of my materials? That would have made a lot of sense. And maybe that world history teacher was really good at something else, the Renaissance time era, and they could have shared that with me. How much power is in that? A lot. Talk about assessments. When I was a world history teacher, PLCs did not exist then. It was survival mode. You got it, you own it, whatever. Well, how much better if I could have sat across from another world history teacher or two or three and say, what's your test look like for World War II? Maybe mine's too easy, maybe mine's too hard. Does it test the standards that we want to assess? Those are all important questions that we need to answer for your kids. The power's in collaboration. This will have our teachers working together under the guidance of Mr. Stewart. Everything we're talking about, I'm going to take it back to the kids. I'm going to take it back to instruction. Adults will figure it out. It's the kids. They get one shot to be a 6th grader here, or a 7th grader, or an 8th grader. The one thing I mentioned, because my back's to the screen, I'm going to go back to speaking of 9th graders. You know the most difficult year for a student in school? Where schools nationwide, where you lose the most kids, their freshman year. It's challenging, it's hard, hormones are off the wall, they're starting to get different thoughts and feelings, they go to a new school and it's bigger. You get behind the 8 ball as a freshman, if you're overage, or you get behind in your credits, one of those two is a major problem to get them to graduate as a senior. If you put both those things together, you have an at-risk child who may not make it to graduation or may make some bad decisions. So this is going to help with that transition from 8th to 9th grade. The same thing, Mr. Kozlowski, Mr. Stewart, the support staff. I mean, they're going to see it's the same. It's a relationship you're going to build, not just 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12. It's 6 through 12. I think it's going to be good for our new Richmond community. There's a lot of pride here as it is. Pulling together. One unified campus. I can't wait until the first big event in the fall season, football season, where there is a 6 through 12 pep assembly in teaching the young kids. Here's how you do a pep assembly. And then maybe a big event tailgate out at the football stadium. Bringing everybody together. Not just one building, not just this building, not just these group of kids, not just that group of kids. It's all of us pulling together. It's going to help us be more efficient. We're not a large district. We're not a wealthy district. When we have students come in that have special needs, gifted, IEP, 504, doesn't matter. I've worked in places, you go out and you just hire somebody. I've worked in places like that. We don't do that. We need somebody for 2 periods. We call that a .4. So we need a .4. Nobody would come here just for a .4 salary. They want a full-time salary. Well, maybe we need a .6 over there, or .4 over there. So now all of a sudden we can offer a position and be more efficient about it instead of scrambling trying to find a .4 or .2. Use of our facilities. Wonderful facilities, cafeterias, gymnasiums, meeting rooms. One person overseeing that will be more efficient. Okay. All right. Mr. Stewart's going to say a few words. Won't be near as interesting as this was. I'm just kidding, right? Okay, Mr. Stewart?
Yeah.
And then we'll answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. So just to kind of put a little bit of context on my experience in these types of buildings, for 13 years on my last job, it was a 7 through 12 building. I was a teacher there, I was a department chair, and I was a vice principal. And I wrote curriculum for all those grades. So I've had a lot of experience, as Mr. Cause has as well, managing those kids from 7th grade all the way up to 12th in all kinds of environments. The goal here, what we're all trying to do, is raise the academic profile of these kids as they come into 6th grade. When you have 2 principals in each of these buildings, they're taking care of their staff and their kids in the best way that they know, which is to get them through the grades that they oversee. I'm 9 through 12, Mr. Lilly is 6, 7, and 8. We don't always read from the same script, and that's the way it has to be sometimes. But this is now giving us a chance for every teacher in these 2 buildings to read from the same script, grade 6 all the way up to grade 12. And we're going to be aligning expectations, aligning curriculum, and aligning standards for all of the grades 6 through 12. So it's a great chance to see those kids grow with continuity, but also look at 6 and 7 as I'm getting ready for high school. I'm getting ready for 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade. When I first came here 3 years ago, Cause and I, we were excited about how close the middle school was physically. It's 100 feet away, but it might as well be 100 miles away at times, because there's been very little collaboration, and that's nobody's fault. That's just the way that it's worked out. This kind of gives us a chance now to get kind of a more streamlined structure for the alignment process, with myself and Cause overseeing it for both buildings, with help from the staff and the parents and the students as well. So academics is the driving force of this decision to align this new district the way we're going to do it. So I'm excited about it, and Mr. Cause is excited about it, and there's going to be a lot of very, very slow, incremental, measured changes over the next few years. I can tell you one thing that's going to happen next year, and that's virtually there'll be no changes at all for the students. The only difference is departments will meet as a group in both buildings, and faculties will meet as a group together when we have faculty meetings to start the planning process. Next year is going to be a heavy lift for everybody in these 2 buildings, because now the planning really begins for the classroom. How do we align our instruction so 6 is ready for 7, and 7 for 8, and so on and so on? There's been some of that in the buildings independently, but not as a large group and a large kind of whole structure. So I'm excited about that, to have those discussions with the English teachers and the math teachers, to get these people in the same room, to talk about expectations from their grade to get the kids ready for next. So I'll give you some statistics here that might hopefully alleviate some of your concerns. Before I got here, for the last, we looked at the last 5 years of data before I took this job. We had about 20 to 24% of our freshmen fail 2 or more core classes by the end of the first semester, right? About 24% were credit deficient by December of their freshman year. And that if they fail another class, then they're 3 classes behind, and then 4, and they're in danger of being at risk or not graduating on time with their peers. So we started our white team to help those kids get ready, and that's been fantastically successful. Now we're only at like a 6% failure rate as opposed to 25 because of the hard work of the teachers on the white team. But we can do that all across the grade levels and provide the academic supports for those kids that may be struggling in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And by kind of aligning these buildings together, although not physically, but through the curriculum, we can catch those kids early and get them caught up. So we're not seeing kids in 7th grade or 8th grade just get moved on to 9th grade, because that's what we've always done. Now they're going to be ready for high school when they walk in the door in August, both socially and also academically as well. So that's kind of what the main idea of this is. It's aligning curriculum 6 through 12 to better prepare these students as they matriculate up through the grades, all the way through the 12th grade and then graduation when they walk across the stage in May. Okay? So that's kind of what the academic...
Could you maybe, or maybe Mr. Kozlowski, about even expectations in the classroom, but expectations, behavioral expectations?
Yeah, so...
How that would benefit.
So there's been some misinformation, which is totally normal. This is a brand new thing for the district. I've talked to the teachers about eventually there will be some students who go back and forth between the middle school and the high school, and the high school and the middle school. We're doing that now. There are several 8th grade students that are academically advanced that take 9th grade courses here now. So that's not new. We're not setting a precedent. But we're going to increase that over the years to get some of these 8th grade and 7th grade kids taking one class or two in this building so they can see walking through the hallways with the older kids, what our structure is like, what the expectation is like as they come into high school and 9th grade. They'll be in common areas with the older kids. They won't be in classrooms with the older kids, but they could be in the hallways or maybe in a locker. But they're going to mimic the behavior that they see. I'll give you an example. So as of today, about 3 o'clock, there's been about 802 referrals from the middle school. Now that's, kids are young, they're squirrely, that's the age group that we're dealing with, as opposed to 250 for the high school. That's 3/4 less, right? So if you get kids over there who see that behavior all the time, they're going to mimic that behavior in the hallways, in the locker bays, in the bathrooms, and in the classroom. Slowly getting them over here, seeing the older kids, how quiet our hallways are, how quiet our lunchroom is. They will take that back over there. And the older kids will help them tamp that behavior down. But that's going to be a slow walk. That's not going to happen next year. So that's part of the social adjustment as well. Is getting some younger classes in classrooms here with 7th graders here, 8th graders here, with their peers in the high school building. Moving between these buildings to kind of see the different expectations behaviorally with the high school kids. And on my last thought, that was one of the biggest advantages, was the 7th graders would come in, running around the buildings, running around the hallways. You're talking about 3,000 kids in this one building. Within 3 weeks, our hallways were silent because the older kids would, we don't do that here. And they kind of check them. And we'll start seeing that over the course of the different times we do this, the behavior will tamp down and tamp down and tamp down. And we won't see the squirreliness that we see there because they're young. And the hormones are flying around the place, and they are middle school kids. It helps us to kind of bring that maturity up a little bit as we slowly bring them over here for 1 or 2 classes throughout the year. Does that make sense?
And I think that the consistency of the administration with principal and associate being able to share that same vision coming all the way through, that consistency.
And we'll be in both buildings probably every day, Mr. Cause and myself. So we'll be visible there, we'll be visible here, so the kids will know us, and the kids will see us every day. So we'll kind of keep those expectations going back and forth between both buildings. And that's kind of a side goal of this, is the social adjustment, but that's also a huge positive as well for those kids. So all the distractions and the little chippy behaviors they do in the classrooms, they won't do that here, because that's not the expectation. And they'll take that back there to their classmates when they go back to the middle school. Okay? So that's kind of a little bit about what the process is going to be like, and what the expectations are as we go through these very slow and measured changes over the next few years between the middle school and the high school. What, you good with what I did?
Just, I know, that's soft-spoken voice.
Yeah.
I think my experience with this, and when we talked about this, one of the advantages is this. Let's say there's an issue over in the middle school. You will now have 3 administrators with knowledge, knowing the kids, knowing the teachers, knowing the system. So we're kind of increasing there. So we had 2. Now we have 3 of us that can help out with that situation. Okay? And same thing over here in this building. I know it's scary. One of the reasons so I was at Deer Park, 7 through 12 building. There we were in the same building, 7th and 8th grade were in a wing until they needed to go to specials, your gym classes, your arts, music. Then they were all in the same hallways. Junior high had a separate lunch. All the stuff that we're going to do here. Okay? Mr. Stewart talked about the older kids and what they will do for the younger kids. We've been doing that since the day we got here, and even before us they were doing it, where we always talk to the seniors when we have our senior meeting the first day and say, hey, we want your help with the younger kids. We need you to help police this building. Okay? That doesn't mean they're putting hands on kids, they're thumping kids in the bathroom, stuff like that. They're acting as leaders do, guidance and all that kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about. Our older kids working with the younger groups in a community setting. It's funny because you talk to the high school kids and they recognize Ms. Gabriel, they recognize their teachers and stuff, but they're away from them. They go 3 years, and they go over here 4 years, and then we separate. We're two separate buildings. Now we're a building. Now we're a community. That's the way I look at it. We went from 2 different buildings to one community type of setting, which means there'll be more interactions with our older kids, with those teachers that they love and they don't ever stop talking about. Okay? And now the younger kids will start to experience some of our older teachers. I did not say that. More experienced teachers over here in this building who are phenomenal. Now those opportunities and those relationships will be developed for 7 years. And this is a 7-year relationship. So we're looking at just general feel amongst the buildings that we are one. We are now New Richmond main campus. That's how I keep referring to it as. And whether you're in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we're all one. We have one voice. I can tell you communication with whatever you're doing in life is important. We now have one voice. Instead of every time we've done something collaboratively, it's getting Joe and getting Court together and deciding, and there's bargaining, and there's this and there's that for whatever reason. Now we have one voice. Okay? It comes from Joe. It goes out to everybody. We're all on the same page. He talked about kids going back and forth. That has been occurring. So that's not a change. We talked about our white team. I love the fact that we were able to start identifying our kids and working with academically challenged kids at an earlier age to prepare them and work with them up through the system. And it's just working some schedule changes to get them some more instructional help. That's what we've done with our group that he's talked about on our white team. Advantage is also our red team, and he didn't mention that. Our red team is our advanced group. Recognizing early on in 6th grade for our advanced groups and pushing them and not putting pressure on them, but academically challenging them through 7 years now, where they can end up is unbelievable. And we have that group which is just getting pushed, and their AP numbers are going up, and we can develop these programs. And we can do it at a much earlier age. The help and the supports. Ms. Gabriel, and she can attest to this. She's not on her own anymore. There's now 3 counselors, 4 administrators who have her back and going to help her with the 8,000 things she does in one day. Okay, we are now all available, and that's the key. You talk about departments pulling teachers together, 4 or 5. Now we're at 10. Now the ideas, the finances, social studies has this in their budget. The resources should be spread out amongst everybody, and that opportunity is huge. I know when I was at Deer Park, if I needed something, the money was available within our department, and it was a 7 through 12, and it was huge. I was the head of it for several years, and it made the resources they were available, the knowledge, transitions. Because yes, the big transition will still somewhat be that 8th grade to 9th grade, but they're going to be in this building. The mentoring programs. I ran several mentoring programs at Deer Park for this situation. It is awesome watching during different times of the years our seniors get together with the 6th grade at Christmas time to make Christmas cards for their parents and their family. We ran a Christmas shop. Okay, we would put seniors with 6th graders. All right, academic help and tutoring. My track team and my football teams, I set up tutoring programs with my junior high football, my junior high track teams. It was so successful. We can do that with our students at any time. It not only helps those older kids learn leadership, commitment to the community value in the family, okay? But it also helps the younger kids catch up, stay up, learn, and the advantages are huge. We ride the same buses every day. I've not heard one person ever complain about that. We have had Mr. Lynch, we deal with it mostly. How many issues do we have between high school and middle school kids on a bus? Very few. Very few. And I'm talking about, I probably count on one hand. So they're together anyways. Go to a sporting event, which is awesome. Friday night football. Who's at the game? Everybody. All grade levels. Now, most of the little guys are out running around on the field over here, but everybody's together. Parents are together, kids are together, and it's always very successful. Homecoming parade, it's everybody. It's a community event. Just imagine that happening more often. That's what we're looking for, and that's what this opportunity, when it came up, Mr. Miller was like, what do you guys think? I think it's great. I was at Deer Park, which was 7 through 12 for 11 years. I was at Summit Country Day. I know, totally different world there. I didn't belong in it. But that was K to 12. And the events were K to 12. And what we had there, communities. It was a Deer Park community, it was a Summit community. And those are all, that's what we're trying to do here. Not that we don't have it, the support is huge. I'm not saying, like I said, go to a football game, everybody's here. But now we have the opportunity to add that to the educational stage. And I think that it's an awesome opportunity. And Joe will be great. I'm bigger than him, I'll take him out if he doesn't.
Thanks, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Kozlowski. When you think about the power of you're a 6th grade parent or you're 6th grade, when you schedule, you're now not just thinking about the schedule for 6, 7, and 8. You can really look long term. What does the schedule look like for your kids 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12? Where do you want your kid, where do they want to be by the time they're a senior? This really affords us that opportunity. It goes back to our kids. Okay, gave you the information. They're not going to be in homeroom together next year. We're not running middle school lunch over here. We're not going to have a middle school locker bay over here. That's not developmentally appropriate. We're already changing kids right now. We're already changing a few staff members right now. That's nothing new. What's the benefit is all things that are going to be happening behind the scenes for your kids. We'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have. Yep.
Yeah, I'm curious, because with anything in this district, look here. These are the parents that are involved. When you take the unfortunate reality of the parents that are not involved, and the unfortunate reality of how their children act in school, this transition, I don't, do you think that's going to change that group of kids? Because that group of kids is what causes issues in that middle school, because there's no structure, there's no, and I hate to use this, but fear and respect kind of go one in one, if you ask me, if you're trying to corral a bunch of kids. There's no respect over there, there's no fear over there, because it comes from the home life as well. So how is any of this, because we're all going to be here no matter what, because we're the parents that are involved. We're the parents that want our kids to succeed.
Right.
We're the parents that want this district to succeed. But there's not very many people here.
And to be fair, I mean, I'm sure we have parents right now that are at sporting events, they're coaching, that are very much involved in their kids' lives.
I'm more focused on discipline that is lacking.
Yeah.
And that if we think just by intertwining some kids that want to succeed in the high school that already have that desire, they're going to succeed anyway. But the discipline for the kids that are an issue.
Okay. Maybe Larry or Jason, can you talk a little bit about the PBIS program? Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Okay. There's a couple of things, we talked about this one, I think when you're bringing the PBIS system, we're trying to implement some things to change that behavior from the positive side, do so many things in the class well, teachers report points, students earn those points, redeem those points for prizes, homework tasks, food, etc. So there's some things we're doing there. From another standpoint is, our handbook is pretty clear. You violate this, you have this consequence. And we do try to make that consistent. I will say, I worked at a 712 environment, same school as Mr. Stewart, different times, and I do really think there is a positive influence when you see those upperclassmen behave the way you want, and you do have that vision, that 7th grader, 6th grader, seeing that high school kid, this is how we act. So I do see a lot of positives from that, and we still enforce our discipline code. We still try to reward kids to do well, and I do think there will be many benefits when the younger kids see that model behavior that we want by those high school students. You would add that there?
And I'll say this, there will be, we've already sort of started our conversations as to, like, you know, coverages, duties, stuff like that. When do kids get in trouble? When they don't think anyone's around, okay? We've already done those conversations. We rearranged some things when Joe and I got here to the high school to add more adult eyes on things. And I think that is one of the reasons why our numbers are so low. We also, you can attribute to the fact that they mature. Kids mature. Kids are still kids. I think I was worse when I was 16 than when I was 13 or 14. You know, but if you look at your supervision, the logistics of some of that, expect that we are on it. We are aware. We know where we want to focus our attention when it comes to the discipline. Because if you're not in the classroom, your education suffers. So we need to clear some of those things up. And it is not anyone's fault. It's just looking at the supervision and the direction that we need to go. We will follow the positive behavior strategies that are in place. The code of conduct, it's not like we're going to sit down and rewrite the code of conduct. The code of conduct is there. It's not like it's not being enforced over there now, but we see some different things, and from our experiences, that some changes that need to be made. Over here, we were able to work some scheduling stuff where we put more teachers on duties at times that we needed teachers on duties. In the morning time where you're sitting right here, every kid that gets on a school bus in our district is right here. But you fight all year. Okay? I reminded some teachers to move around and stuff of that nature, and we have anywhere, I think it's, we go department, so 2 departments at a time, 5 to 10 teachers on duty on time. We don't have a problem. High school kids, for the most part, are still sleeping, some of them are in their pajamas still. They get some food, they sit down, and not an issue. I've been in junior high for 20 years as a teacher. They have a lot of energy from the time they get off that bus to the time they get onto that bus. We need to make sure that we have more eyes over there. So if we have some teachers that have some open periods and stuff like that, we can now cross buildings, you know, get more eyes on kids and clean up some of that. Our goal is to not put kids out unless we have to. If you're interrupting the education of others, you get so many lives, and you're gone. We got to make some changes. And we have some places where we can help those kids out. We don't usually get to that. We take care of it prior to that. And it's all about putting adult eyes into those situations and managing those situations. So, I mean, are we going to stop at discipline issues? No. It's still school. Okay? But we will right away be working on minimizing those issues so that the kids can come and feel safe, which is the number one, and teachers can feel safe. And I know for a fact that in every building I've ever been, there's been a moment where a teacher has not felt safe. That is now our job. And we've already taken that into account as we've started to plan. Because if you can't, and that's both buildings, because as much as we're at, what'd you say, 270? 260. 260, somewhere like that. That's 260 more than I want. Okay? So when I got that number from Joe this afternoon, it was like, okay, what do we need to change here going into this last quarter? Because we should always continue to try to improve on those things. And it's working with, you know, with the staff to do that. And I, by no means, I mean, Mr. Lynch we've offered him several times some help. If he needs help, we're always ready to go over there. Next year, we will be over there. So, that's where we're at. I'm just gonna.
I'm sorry.
Actually, I have two questions for you to finish speaking.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, boss.
Go ahead.
First thing you're saying, yes, I know kids go back and forth at this point, and it's not gonna happen right away, but is there some future plan down the road where both buildings can be 7 to 12 and kids can back? Or is it always gonna be primarily 6, 7, 8, 9 to 12, some?
The visioning for the next several years, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But I do anticipate ideas happening organically. When you get a bunch of smart people in a room, a bunch of smart teachers in a room, say, you know what, we could do better if we did this, if we changed this. That's how good changes take place. Not from the top down, but through conversations. Hey, let's try this.
My other question is, and you may take a bit of safety. So if you have the kids walking back and forth, I know you put a lot of upgrades in the front with the lock doors and the extra. How are those kids going back and forth? Are they coming around to the front being let in, or are they coming to the side doors that's unlocked? Is somebody looking at that?
Yeah.
That's a really good question, because that's a big issue, is kids being exposed outside when they're not in a building, right? So we don't have a covered awning or any kind of secure pathway, so it'll be the shortest distance. They'll come out the same door together and come in this building at the same door. There'll be adults in that open space between every passing bell. Probably myself, Mr. Lynch, and Mr. Coyce. We'll be out there with those kids, make sure they're not scattering and running around. They'll come right from A to B or B to A as quickly as possible.
The doors are still locked during the day from the outside.
Yeah, so there'll be a staff member inside the door letting the kids in when they come in. Only we will open the door. We're not going to encourage kids to walk by and open a door for some random kid to come in. And that's the planning piece that we're going to work on all next year. How does this going to be the safest expectation possible for our kids? So that's all going to be talked about this year in the planning, but safety will be a priority as well.
Like right now, Officer Goldsmith is normally there when there's a crossover. And he takes that upon himself. You see him at the end of the parking lot at the end of the day. He locked that gate because he noticed that there were kids walking down shortcut. So it was his, I say his idea, because he took kind of a meeting on the internet from some people, of course. But it was his idea, hey, we should lock that for 20 minutes so that the kids can walk down that hill and not have to worry about getting clipped. Heck, I've only hit a couple, I'm not going to lie, just because they're kids and that's not a very wide road. He a lot of times stations himself where he's around and about, either in his car or physically. But like Joe said, it's a scheduling thing. We will know what door and all that. Like right now we have an 8th grade arts class. We know they go out this door every day. He waits for them and they buzz them in over there to the main office. And it's been smooth so far, but that's going to be on us in providing. That's another one of those kind of like duty things where, hey, stand there and just make sure the kids get in and they're across it.
Just to allay some fears, because that's a big fear, I think, of how many kids going back and forth. It will never be 200 kids here, 200 kids there at once coming across the campus. It will never be that large. It's going to be measured and targeted. That building has physical limitations. It's an elementary school, so the hallways are a lot narrower, the ceilings are a lot shorter. I couldn't put 5 senior classes in there for third bell because the kids wouldn't fit. But there will be a very small amount incrementally of kids coming back, and it'll be targeted and measured.
And we might have some rising 6th grade parents here. Who's Officer Goldsmith?
Oh, I'm sorry. Officer Goldsmith is our SRO. Longtime detective, like 20 years, I think. He is retired from the sheriff's office. Still works for the sheriff's office, retired. And he has been our SRO for 2 years now. And I don't think I've ever worked with either a better man or a better officer than he is.
He's good.
He's good.
He's good.
He's very good.
In the back.
Hi, I think that you guys are smart and in the right spot. I get it. I think in the reality of putting 12 and 6 together, it's not effective. But with that said, my real question is this.
Yeah, what's the question?
How do you guys have unilateral power just to implement this in our school? Be responsible. That's what I just wanted to. Who said that you can just implement this without parental consent?
Yeah, it was as superintendent, as the educational leader here in 38 years of experience, it was my recommendation. I recommended to our board, we talked about it for a while. I said, here's what we're thinking. Mr. Lilly just left in December. So we began the conversations after the break, came back in January.
Zero communication with the middle school principal is gone.
Do what?
He's gone.
Oh, resign, you said last.
Oh, okay. We're like, wait, what?
That's all I would.
Yeah, and so it was a very deliberate process, because to get this in place, we had to we're changing out the middle school principal for the associate principal's position, which means creating a job description for that, having discussions around that, and getting that approved. And then we posted for that.
Well, I don't think you're going to get, I mean, you will get a few. I mean, my family's been here since 1990. Literally been here since 1990. 0. I don't think you're going to get the amount of senior leadership that you think from the 6th grade running around acting crazy. I can contest my oldest daughter and make you treat my son. You know, so you know what I'm saying? That's generally going to be the characteristic. You love them, but you hate them.
Yeah.
You know? So I really.
Who's a 6th grade kid more likely to listen to? Another older kid?
Well, between the ages of 12 and 14, 6, that age is more malleable to listen to a senior in high school than their parents.
Right. Agree. Agree.
So when you're intermingling with that 6th grader with a 12th grader, it just might not be on the course where I really don't care about it, but he sees that kid,
Yeah.
he sees him every once in a while, he's like, I like him.
Yeah.
He's going to start mimicking.
Yeah. Agreed.
So
Agreed.
I do. I think you guys really have your heart set in the right spot. I get it. You do what you do. There is a dose of reality that you really.
Yeah, that's why most of us drive our kids to school. So that's why you're not seeing, I mean, the line of cars you see out here, that's why you don't have a huge interaction on buses between 6 and 12. Because I tell you what, my children have never ridden the bus because bad things happen on the bus.
How do you know that?
I'm an adult.
Your kids have never ridden the bus, right?
Have you ever, I do not hear very good stories about buses, but I'm not the only thing.
Right.
I mean,
But the busing's not a change. That stays the same.
point is
We're
that
busing them
I'm-
here.
I'm backing
And-
up what he's saying, and the integration of my 11-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Where would they be together, right? So they're not in the same classrooms. They might be walking in the hallways. I'm sorry.
You guys said.
Yeah, well, so like, what we mean is informal mentoring, like in the hallways, right? They'll see the older kids behaving and not running around the building, throwing things, throwing pencils in the ceiling. That's what I meant. They won't be like taking the kid under the wing for an hour a day saying, Johnny, you've got to do that, that, and that. This will all be informal.
Yeah, literally, he just said it. That's exactly what.
We down the road will look at setting up kids who are having academic help, mentoring programs, which is what we do now. That might be, you know, they have lunch together someplace.
Oh, I'm not
in a
arguing.
controlled
I'm
setting.
saying he literally just said what you
Yeah.
said.
So,
If I could jump in. An academic entrance program.
if I could jump in for just a minute. I'm John Fry. I was on lunch duty over there. That brought back a lot of memories because I was a high school principal a long, long time ago. But what I want to say to address the question about 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade is 800 referrals, office referrals this year versus 270 at the high school. Part of that is building culture and what has to happen and what will happen. And we may not teach the first several days as we open the school year next year, but we've got to teach culture and how to behave and how to respect each other. I'm going to tell you, and administrators that are here right now, the 5th graders in the elementaries are not running around jumping and bouncing off the ceiling. It's not chaos in the elementaries. It's not crazy town. So they come here, and we've got to work with teachers, we've got to work with staff. Staff has to develop this message, this common message about what we're about and how we treat others. And we build that culture beginning in 6th grade. You had it in 5th grade, you didn't lose it over the summer, you bring it right back into 6th grade. But now we have 2 elementaries joining each other. And that'll be the work that'll have to be done in the beginning of the year to change that culture. From 6th grade to 7th grade. The 8th grade kids are coming here. The 5th grade kids are coming to the 6th grade. They don't know this. The 5th grades are coming to the middle school.
thinking just like they did as fifth graders. So we've got to address that culture, and I think we can. There's enough brain power between both buildings to be able to establish that new level of expectation and what we won't tolerate. And that'll happen in the classroom.
That culture is always there. You were here, you were my principal when I was here. You know that culture is always there. I can see my son's classes going through, and it's almost the same culture as when I was here. I mean, so what are you really trying to implement? It's still a nice, peaceful, we like that. So
We'd like to not have 800 referrals at our middle school. But that's an issue. That is. That needs to get dug in and find out why that shouldn't be. That's a disruption to the educational process. You have 800 referrals for 400 kids. Yes.
So, I think a lot of what you guys are saying is good, but I, as a parent, am concerned about a few things because I have had problems in the elementary school, nonstop. I've had to pull all my kids off the bus because they were getting beat up, held against the window, and knocked around. My one daughter came home from school with a huge knot on her head, getting knocked around by older kids. So I'm really nervous about the small mixing. I've also had a child locked out of the building and left by a teacher, and it was brushed off. So I really, even in a small group setting, I'm nervous about my kid walking across the street because I don't have a lot of trust for you guys right now. And it scares me to death because they're the most important, but they haven't been the most important. And you say a lot of good things, but I have not seen much change, and I myself went to these schools. And now I'm watching my children get beat up in the elementary school. It's a constant problem. So how are you going to guarantee my children's safety?
Can't guarantee. You can walk into a church and get shot. The most secure place in the world is the White House. And Google tonight, intruders into the White House. I would be lying if I said I can't guarantee anything. What I can do is tell you we're going to do the very best we can to give all the kids here, pre-K through 12, a quality instructional experience and make sure that they're taken care of as best as we possibly can. Again, we can't speak. I don't want to speak about specific issues. We can do that later if you'd like to.
Well,
but going with a common vision and a common mission will be further down the road than what we are right now. We'll be further down the road. Hear what Mr. Kozlowski said. Maybe Ms. Lilly has different expectations. Maybe Ms. Stewart has different expectations. Now we've got one set of expectations. Other questions? Yes.
So back when the middle school NRHS was between 6th through 8th, we were told that our 6th graders would have very little interaction with 8th graders. They'd have their own locker bay, they'd have their own bathroom. But I hear from my 6th graders that there's a lot of interaction between hallways. They're constantly passing around the hallways, to cafeteria, to gyms, to specials. What business does a 6th grader and a 12th grader have interaction with each other? What business does a 6th grader and a 12th grader be in the same bathroom?
99% they wouldn't. But can you say, before I got here, wasn't that one of the selling points, not selling points, but of creating the middle school there is to be able to share students and staff, Mr. Fry?
It was. When we closed New Richmond Elementary and moved the middle school there, the purpose really was to take advantage of the opportunities back and forth. Not for everybody. 6th grade kids aren't going to take high school classes. 7th grade advanced, 8th grade advanced and accelerated can access the curriculum at the high school. They can take high school courses for credit. So we always expected interaction. We really never got as much as we wanted. How much we'll get, I don't know, because that'll just grow. I don't see 6th grade interacting in terms of going to classes. Joe's got that vision. I haven't heard that. I heard mentoring programs. Student mentoring programs are strong and powerful, important. Most schools have those mentoring programs, and they're students to students. They do grow. with the maturity. They grow the maturity of students. Jason, do we have a 6th grade locker bay?
We do have a 6th grade locker bay. It is the nearest gym, science wing.
Okay.
Cafeteria.
That's where I thought it was. We don't have a lot of intermingling of 6th grade in other locker bays. So
That's going to continue.
where that's coming from, I don't know. But for the most part, 6th grade is, we tried to keep in the middle school together.
But their bathroom is right there by the gym and the cafeteria. So if 8th graders are using that bathroom, 12th graders are using that bathroom. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think 6th graders and 12th graders should be sharing bathrooms.
As Mr. Stewart's, well,
6th graders are professional and they're hormonal and
Right.
their girls are going through different things and they don't.
just two,
need to be doing that with their
right. Two things. If you heard what Mr. Kozlowski said, football Friday nights, who's going in the bathrooms with them then? But then you also heard Mr. Stewart say, it is a retrofitted elementary school. It's, if you walk, it feels small. I feel claustrophobic when I walk in here. It really, there's no facilities there that our high school students would need. Like, there's not this great science lab over there that we're going to teach AP physics over there. It doesn't exist. It's a retrofitted elementary school. It's more getting the kids ready to see in the big picture. It's not just 6, 7, 8. It's just, there's a whole another chapter waiting on you when you get to high school. We don't want to lose anybody in the transition from 8th to 9th grade. Other questions?
Weather. How are these kids going to be getting across in these nasty storms and stuff?
We do it now.
I know. I watched them all get drenched walking through a storm
Did they
from the
make-
field house up here just the other day.
We talk about our kids aren't tough enough, don't we? You
No.
don't have enough grit.
None of them had an umbrella. None of them had anything. Anything. They walked up. Every one of them were soaking wet when they walked in this high school door.
Well, that's, again, 612 campus, that's not going to change. I mean, that's not going to, that's still, if we had the 2 separate buildings next year, we're still going to have kids get wet in the rain. Is it right?
So can I just make a comment
Yeah, please.
about discipline? You guys came in the back. So it seems like that's been a common theme of some of the questions is discipline, right? Especially in the middle school. So let me just say this, I want to be upfront with everybody. I didn't get into this job to put fear into 12-year-old children, and I will not do that. We fix discipline by changing relationships amongst young people and old people. That's the culture change we need in the middle school. Okay? Kids will not get into trouble if they respect the adults in their building. And if they don't, that's always not the adult's fault. We have to build relationships with the kids so they don't want to get in trouble. There's always going to be kids that are going to get in trouble. Kids don't come to school to get suspended. I'm doing this 25 years. Kids don't wake up looking to get in trouble. But when they get into the buildings, something sets them off. So we have to do a better job as a culture of winning the rapport and respect of those kids so they don't want to disappoint their teachers. That's the big issue I see as someone looking from the outside inside the middle school. Everybody can do a better job of building rapport with students. If there are significant relationships, there will be significant learning, not significant discipline. But I am not going to sit there and scare the life out of an 11-year-old kid. I will not do it. I will never do it. That's not why I got into this job. We can change discipline by changing relationships, not by the tone and level of my voice when a child's sitting right in front of me because they made a mistake that 13-year-old kids make. That's how we're going to attack that problem. We're going to change the relationship between the young people and the old people, and that's going to take work. But that's what all next year is going to be. It's the planning phase with all the teachers in both buildings. How can we change the culture in our building to have the same vision, the same standards, and the same expectations from everyone to everyone? And that's the hard part is. And we've got to win all your trust back for that. And we're going to do the best job that we can. But that's how we change discipline. We change relationships.
I just wanted to add on to what Gary said. There is some crossover with our senior. I have a senior, and he's going to band. He's going that way. He's going to CPE. He's going that way. He's going to have some with the 8th graders. But that being said, and there is a problem because he has talked to me about it. He gets pushed. He gets hit. It's there, and I know that. But what Mr. Kozlowski said is that part of the discipline is going to be more teacher eyes. And I've been in that hallway, and there's only so many people that put so many eyes. So as a group, as our administrators work to get that discipline and put more eyes in those areas is gonna fix those problems where our 6th graders won't feel it.
Adult eyes.
Because they know so-and-so's gonna be there at that point, and it's,
Adult
so,
eyes.
it's things that maybe should have already happened, but they didn't, but it's the plan to fix it. And I think, and we're not intermingling our kids, like you said, we're getting our administrators all on the same board. And that's how communication, that's how the system works. And I've seen it here in this building I've been here for a long time too. We're trying really, really hard. And so it just takes village. And that's what I think these gentlemen are trying to do.
And I asked that in our trust. How do you win our trust? You can't win it. There's nothing I can say right now that makes you trust me. How do I do that? You'll see next year when we're there, we're on top of stuff we're working on. Am I saying that there could be any problem? No. But you can trust that we have every student, 6 to 12, their best interest in our hearts. We are going to do everything that we can to make sure that their experience here in Richmond is awesome. Like so many of the alumni that I have talked to, that have talked about how wonderful the place this is. But there's nothing, we can stand up here all night. There's not one thing that any of the adults leading this conversation will say for you to trust us, other than the fact that we are thinking in the best interest of the district, your students, and we're going to do the best job, 100% tireless effort, and we will win back your trust as we move along.
See better than you hear.
Well, I guess I'd like to say something.
Okay, we have one back here, and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Who is? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This one.
You're talking about alignment and curriculum and stuff like that to give kids more support.
Yeah.
You know, my kid is one of those that does go back and forth between the high school now and the 8th grade. And that's been great. But what do you mean by alignment? Are we talking about standardization type stuff starting in ELA and the high school and math as well again? Because like we just did the standardization here in the high school. I mean, is that what you're talking about?
We-
High school levels?
No, that's not at all what we're
I
talking
just want
about.
to make sure, because I kind of really like how the high school does their thing, and I
Yeah,
would hate to see that.
we just did standards and program adoptions for ELA K-12 and for math K-12, and we made decisions about the curriculum based on what was developmentally appropriate for those subjects and those age groups. So that's not really the change. The change is behind, it's not anything the children would see. It's, in my opinion, for curriculum it's and instruction, it's behind the scenes. It's instead of 6 ELA teachers at the middle school trying to figure out how best to implement the curriculum and what strategies work best and how to increase achievement. Now we have a department, next year we'll have a department of 10 ELA teachers. Not that they're teaching the same kids, but they're working together on what are the standards. It's a band, 6th grade through 12th grade. They'll have more people undergoing the same professional development, working together to make some of those decisions. But the standards and the programs will not change for the students. They'll just make decisions better together.
Let me give you a real tangible example. If you have a 6th grade or younger kid, I'm hoping this will impact your kid. Our kids need to have Algebra 1 offered to our 8th grade class, not just as an outlier. Look around other districts. I can't think of another district that does not have Algebra 1 in 8th grade. That is unacceptable. Dr. Holmes was right there. Last year, we got a new math curriculum in place that we're going to work it back. 12th grade skills, what do you need? 11th grade skills, what do you need? 10th grade skills. 10th grade, what skills you need as a ninth grader? Then 9th grade, what skills you need to take Algebra 1 at 8th grade to make sure those kids are getting those skills, and then work it from the bottom up. Our kids should not receive less of an education that every other district offers their kids. shouldn't happen. This will help expedite that. We have them in the curriculum this year 1 or year 2 for math.
This is year 1
This
for
is
math.
year 1. So 6th graders, the plan is by the time they're 8th graders, they're going to be able to take algebra for a credit-bearing class, take algebra 1. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, you know, our 2 kids that graduated from here, one of them went on and is extremely successful in his chemical business. He puts atoms together where people could. He graduated from NKU over here, and he went down to Lexington and did a class down there and invented a machine that is used worldwide now. And I mean, he was inspired by the teachers here and did that.
Yep.
And our daughter's on the wall out there for Army, and she spent 17 years in the military and was one of the top 5 people in the Army. I mean, she is world renowned in those areas that she worked in, which you really can't talk about. But she was all over the world and did great things because of, I remember the vice principal here said that Carlin will be tremendously successful. I saw him out here on the entranceway to the high school one day, and he said, you know, the problem with Carlin is she's too smart for this school. She says it hasn't been challenged enough. Whenever somebody challenges her enough, and that's what happened. She was challenged in the military, and she went on to be one of the super duper people in the area she was in.
Yeah, good experience here.
You know, and my youngest son is on the wall there for his wonderful things that he did in the military as an MP. And it's just, this school has just been so fantastic. The leaders here, I remember our granddaughter goes to Monroe, and she said Mr. Smitty was teaching out there, and he's changed a little bit. I told her about when Will was in school over here in elementary school. He would come into the classroom so fired up every day, and he would lay down on his back and he would spin around on the floor and he'd jump up and he'd say whatever they were studying. You know, it's teachers. Teachers inspire kids to do great things.
The relationships.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's the teacher-student relationship. It'll take them to the highest heights.
Yes, ma'am.
So what might allocation of the specialized staff look like? Like, will counselors still be grade-based? Will intervention specialists be grade-based or ability level-based?
We will schedule where the needs are for the kids, but right now the plan is for counseling. Mrs. Gabriel's got her hands full there, 6, 7, 8. We know we got Mrs. Coulter, Miss Atkins over here, but they're going to be able to. They're going to be able to help each other in the busy time, the scheduling season, the building the schedules. They're going to help each other. But we're going to schedule as the needs are, and that's one of the benefits for the district, is if they've got a .2 hanging out there and we need a .2 over here, we're going to pull them over here. That's the best use of our staff. No matter if they're teaching math or specialties, doesn't matter.
So in a special ed, will it be like ability grades-based grouping? So like if we have a 10th grader at a 6th grade level,
Were you talking about continuum of services with special education, special needs kids?
So like, you know, at the middle school currently, it seems to be more like a couple work with 6th graders and a couple work with 7th.
We try to do that. We have 7 intervention specialists in the middle school currently because the ratio is 16:1, and we have 5 at the high school because the ratio is 24:1. We do have a shared classroom in the high school that serves both middle school and high school students, and likely we'll have continued services as bubbles of population move through the grades between 6 and 12. depending upon their disability. I don't see that changing. I see that continuing to be, to have ownership for those students, to work with those teachers, 6th grade teachers, 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers. When we get to high school, we begin to specialize in math intervention and reading intervention. I don't know that that'll change, except that when those special populations and groups move through, we'll be more easily able to adapt. I hope that helps.
More nimble.
Always.
We'll be more nimble. Yep.
You know, when I hear PLC time and copy plan time and the lighting curriculum, all of that, I would assume should already be happening now, and I don't see why it isn't right now. The only thing that I hear is different is the vision. So I hear next year is planning, but what is the long-term vision? So not 1 year, not 2 years, what's that, 3, 4, 5, where do you see us? What is that vision?
Delivering high quality instruction to all of our kids, no matter what ability level that you are, by having common expectations from our grade level teachers, our subject level teachers, so it's fair for kids. We want to make sure that they are prepared when they leave us as a senior. They are as prepared as they possibly can be for whatever waits for them the next step of their life.
We're going to offer like more AP classes, or we're going to offer.
That's a great question. So him and I come from a similar background. How many AP classes have you already had?
So when I came here, we had 2, now we have 8.
So
3 years, we're adding 6 more.
That is-
We're adding a new one next year.
that is light speed changes right there. And I do believe that access to high levels of instruction raises all boats. So we do want to keep increasing. So from 2 to 8 in a really short period of time, that is astronomical, those changes. Algebra 1 at 8th grade. It's got to happen. You hear something and it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. Email myself, email Mr. Stewart. Nope, we will get you the answer. Okay. Only thing that's really different next year is there's going to be a different principal. Most others won't see any kind of a change at all. Okay. I appreciate your time tonight. We went over a few minutes, and again, be happy to stick around. Thank you so much.